From UFOs at Roswell to secret Nazi scientists working for the US, and even a mind control program straight out of a sci-fi movie, history is full of wild cover-ups. But which ones are the craziest? Stay tuned, because today we're counting down the top 8 biggest cover-ups in history. And trust us, you won't believe what's hiding at number 1. Starting off at number 8, the Roswell UFO incident, one of the most talked about mysteries of all time. It all began in July 1947 near Roswell, New Mexico, when a rancher discovered strange debris scattered across his property: metal fragments, odd rubber strips, and tinfoil-like sheets. The military was quick to step in. At first, they claimed it was a flying disc. The media went wild, but within hours, the story changed. The military suddenly declared it was just a weather balloon. Suspicious, right? Years later, former military officers, locals, and even investigators started coming forward with strange stories: secret autopsies, alien bodies, and high-level government involvement. Many believe the US government covered up evidence of extraterrestrial life. In 1994, decades after the incident, the Air Force admitted it wasn't a weather balloon, but a top-secret project called Project Mogul, designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests. Still, conspiracy theories refused to die. What really happened in Roswell? Was it a crashed alien craft, a Cold War secret gone wrong, or something else entirely? Whether fact or fiction, one thing's for sure: Roswell remains one of the biggest alleged cover-ups in history, keeping people intrigued for over 75 years. Coming up next, at number 7, imagine this: a royal family, executed in the dead of night, their bodies dumped in secrecy. But one question haunted the world: did the youngest daughter, Anastasia Romanov, somehow survive? For decades, rumors swirled. Stories emerged of a girl escaping the massacre, vanishing into obscurity. Then in 1920, a mysterious woman named Anna Anderson appeared, claiming to be Anastasia. She knew intimate details of the Romanov family, convincing many. But was she telling the truth? Historians were baffled. The Soviet government remained silent, fueling conspiracy theories. Why? Were they hiding something? It wasn't until 1991 that a mass grave was discovered, believed to be the Romanovs. But wait, 2 bodies were missing: Anastasia's and her brother Alexei's. Years later, in 2007, another grave was found with 2 more skeletons. DNA tests confirmed they were the missing children. So, did Anastasia die that fateful night, or did the Soviets delay releasing the truth to cover up their brutal crime? Even with the evidence, many still wonder: was it all a cover-up, or is there more to the story? The mystery lingers, making Anastasia Romanov one of history's greatest unresolved intrigues. Would you have believed Anna Anderson? Up next at number 6. Did you know that one of history's biggest cover-ups began right after World War II? It's called Operation Paperclip, and it's a story of secret deals, Nazi scientists, and the birth of modern technology. In 1945, as the dust of World War II settled, the US faced a new rival, the Soviet Union. Both sides raced to grab the greatest scientific minds from Germany. But here's the catch: many of these scientists had worked for the Nazi regime, building weapons of war, and even participating in horrific human experiments. One of the most famous? Wernher von Braun, the mastermind behind the deadly V-2 rockets that terrorized Europe. Instead of being tried for war crimes, he was whisked away to America, where he helped design NASA's rockets. That's right, without these scientists, the US might never have made it to the moon. But was it worth the price? Thousands of Nazi scientists were given new identities and brought to America, their dark pasts buried in secret. Operation Paperclip wasn't just a mission, it was a moral dilemma. America gained technology, but at what cost? History books barely mention it. Makes you wonder, what other secrets are out there? Think you know history? Think again. Next up at number 5, in 1932, one of the darkest chapters in American medical history began: the Tuskegee syphilis study. It started with a promise: free healthcare for hundreds of poor black men in rural Alabama. What they didn't know: they were unwitting subjects in a government experiment to study the effects of untreated syphilis. For 40 years, the US Public Health Service watched as these men suffered and even died without giving them the cure. And here's the shocking part: by the 1940s, penicillin was widely available and could have saved lives, but they didn't administer it. Why? To observe how the disease progressed untreated. These men were told they had bad blood, but in reality, they were victims of a massive cover-up disguised as medical care. It wasn't until 1972, when a whistleblower leaked the story, that the world learned the horrifying truth. The fallout: public outrage, lawsuits, and sweeping changes to medical ethics. This wasn't just an experiment, it was a betrayal of trust on a massive scale. The Tuskegee study stands as a haunting reminder reminder of how far things can go when ethics are ignored in the name of science. A true cautionary tale and one of the biggest cover-ups in history. Halfway there, at number 4, did you know that a simple break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in 1972 led to one of the greatest political scandals ever? This wasn't just any ordinary burglary. It was part of a massive cover-up orchestrated by the Nixon administration. 5 men were caught trying to wiretap phones and steal documents at the Watergate complex. At first, the public had no idea who was behind it, but as reporters dug deeper, shocking revelations emerged. This wasn't a rogue operation. It went all the way to the White House. President Richard Nixon and his team tried everything to hide their involvement: hush money, manipulating the FBI, and even destroying evidence. But it all started to unravel when secret recordings of Nixon's Oval Office conversations were discovered. These tapes proved he was directly involved in the cover-up. As the truth came out, Nixon faced impeachment, and in 1974, he became the first U.S. president to resign. Watergate wasn't just a scandal. It became a symbol of corruption, conspiracy, and how no one, not even the president, is above the law. This was a story of deceit, power, and the relentless pursuit of truth, proving that sometimes the cover-up is worse than the crime. Next up at number 3, imagine waking up one morning in a peaceful town, unaware that just a few miles away, a nuclear reactor has exploded, releasing radiation 400 times more potent than the Hiroshima bomb. That's exactly what happened on April 26, 1986, in Chernobyl, Ukraine. But here's where things get even more shocking. Officials didn't tell the public the truth. Instead of immediate evacuations, Soviet leaders tried to downplay the catastrophe. No warnings, no protective measures. Life carried on, as if nothing had happened. It wasn't until a nuclear plant in Sweden detected unusually high radiation levels that the world started asking questions. Only then, 2 days later, did the Soviet government admit there had been an incident. But by that time, thousands of people had been exposed to lethal radiation. The secrecy didn't stop there. Reports were suppressed, deaths were undercounted, and the true scale of the disaster was buried under propaganda. To this day, the Chernobyl disaster remains a grim reminder of how governments sometimes hide the truth to protect their image, even at the cost of human lives. What's scarier, the explosion itself or the cover-up? You decide. Coming up next at number 2, did you know that one of the most shocking government cover-ups in history was about mind control? Back in the 1950s, during the height of the Cold War, the CIA launched a top-secret project known as K-Ultra. Their goal? To control human behavior. And how did they try to do it? By secretly experimenting on thousands of people using LSD, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and even electroshock therapy. What's even scarier, many of these subjects didn't even know they were part of the experiments. The CIA targeted vulnerable groups, prisoners, psychiatric patients, and even ordinary citizens, often without their consent. They believed mind control could be used as a weapon in espionage. In 1973, as public scrutiny grew, the CIA ordered the destruction of most MK-Ultra documents. But a few survived, revealing the truth. The experiments didn't just fail, they left a trail of ruined lives, broken minds, and unanswered questions. MK-Ultra wasn't just an experiment, it was a nightmare hidden from the public for decades. It's a chilling reminder of what can happen when power goes unchecked. And at last but not least, in the 20th century, one of the biggest cover-ups in history unfolded right under our noses: the cigarette industry's deliberate deception about the dangers of smoking. For decades, cigarette companies knew the truth. Smoking was killing millions, but they didn't want to lose profits, so they waged a massive campaign to hide the truth. In the 1950s, studies already linked smoking to cancer, but instead of warning the public, companies funded their own research to cast doubt on the findings. They claimed smoking was harmless and even pushed the idea that it helped with stress. But it didn't stop there. They worked hand in hand with powerful lobbyists and even doctors to give smoking a healthy image. Tobacco ads flooded the media, featuring doctors, athletes, and celebrities endorsing their brands. The industry was making billions, while the public remained in the dark. It wasn't until the 1990s, after decades of hidden documents were exposed, that the truth came to light. Cigarette companies had been manipulating research, suppressing information, and lying to protect their profits. This cover-up cost millions of lives and sparked one of the biggest legal and public health battles in history. So the next time you light up, remember, the truth was buried for a reason. The cigarette industry's cover-up was one of the most powerful in modern history.